Hello, and welcome to the Women's Technology Council Leadership video series. My name is Kassandra Acuna, and I'm a third-year majoring in computer science. I'm pleased to welcome Neha Joshi, Growth and Strategy Lead at Accenture Security. Neha has more than 15 years of experience in the security industry. She is an author and also a frequent speaker on topics ranging from security identities to innovation and to leadership. Neha, welcome and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Kassandra. Thank you so much for having me.
So, is there anything that you wish you knew at the start of your career?
I think when I was starting my career, it felt like I was charting a path, as I said, kind of making a plan. If I was telling my younger self what to expect, you don't know where every opportunity is going to take you. Not
Right.
only because it's just impossible to plan, from what's happening, but the world is changing so fast, especially in technology. So the things that I thought would be important at the time, the things that I thought that I was learning in school and that I was going to use in my career were actually really just the stepping stones. And the things that I actually took for granted at the time became the fundamentals that I came back to and relied on as I pivoted my career growth and took different paths. So think more in broad strokes about what you're going to learn and how you're going to grow. Look at your strengths. And then think about how you can actually use those, right? Use that as your platform, your foundation that you're actually growing your career on. Find your superpowers, right? What are those superpowers? What are the things that come more easily to you than maybe to somebody else? What are the things that people kind of keep coming back to you for? The things that you actually get energy from when you do. Because those are the things that are going to make it easier for you as you progress your career. Knowing yourself, knowing what you can actually bring to the table as you deal with all of those different technologies, looking at what you bring to the table, that I think is going to make a bigger difference than those smaller decisions that you can make right now.
Right. I guess in general, where if somebody is uncertain about what exactly they want to do in the future, what would your advice be to them?
Finding out what is out there and then seeing what sparks for you. It's a little easier in a virtual world to reach out to somebody on LinkedIn and say, hey, your career path sounds really interesting. Would you be able to take 15 minutes for a virtual coffee so I can understand more of what you do and what you love about your job and what you don't love about your job? Right. Also look at your own network, because your network is maybe broader than you realize. Your own, from your own from within NYIT, your professors and your friends, and people have different internships and things like that. But also, your own at home, your friends' parents, your people in your community, in your religious centers, whatever. That's your network, right? And understanding what do those people do, and what do they like about it, what do they don't. You might find that something you never considered actually speaks to you, right? As you start doing that research, you find that you're drawn to something you never thought of.
That's really good advice. So, women need to see women like themselves leading and actively mentoring other women. Are there any people that you consider mentors in your career?
So many people. I rely very heavily on mentorship in honestly day-to-day work life, but also in just navigating my career. I think of it of what is it that you need at this point in your career, and then finding people that you feel that can bring that to you, right? So I have a couple of different mentors that I go to sort of regularly right now, and each of them bring me something different. For me, it's I really have different kinds of mentors for different things, and I'm aware of that I need those different types of mentorships and who to go to when. It also means I don't inundate any one of them with too many requests, which is also
Right.
helpful.
So, how do you approach someone to basically ask them, hey, can you be my mentor?
Yeah. This is a question I get a lot, actually, of how to do this. And it's being clear of why you're approaching them, right? Why is it that you want their mentorship? And in some ways, it's very flattering to be asked to be a mentor, right? So you want to be clear about what it is about them that is drawing you, right? I think the second thing is also being very clear on your goals from the relationship. They may say, I'm not the best person to help you with C on your list, right? A and B, let's do it. C, I don't know how to help you with that, but I can give you some other recommendations, right? For example, when I take on new mentees, I often actually sit down with them, even if I've known them for years. I say, I want to start our mentoring relationship with a 1 hour call where we pretend we've never met. I want you to tell me your history in your own words. I want to tell you to tell me what's worked for you and what hasn't in previous mentoring or supervisory relationships, right? And what led you, what are those key decision points that led you here today? And then I want you to tell me what you want from me, right? What is it that you're looking for from me? What would be successful for you in this relationship? And what is the cadence that we can help you to get there?
So I'm assuming that you think mentors are obviously very extremely important, but how important are they to college graduates?
Well, I did have some mentors and sponsors. I didn't seek them out. It was sort of part of the program of intake and onboarding, which was really helpful. So I would say that as a graduate, I do think it's important to make sure that you're doing that for a couple reasons. One is it helps you to also just build your network internally, right? It also helps you to know some of the culture and the undocumented truths. It's a different perspective from somebody that's on the other side, right? That's out there
Right,
working and thinking about how you can leverage all that rich education and opportunities you get while you're in school to leverage it to do more.
right. How and where do you find inspiration?
I find inspiration honestly all around me. I'm probably too inspired. I'm always finding so much inspiration around me. I would probably put it into two main categories if I can. The first is books. I read a lot. I read fiction and nonfiction, but I think both give me so much inspiration in the work that I do. Both from understanding people's stories, what kind of challenges have they faced, how have people problem solved, what kind of creativity have they brought, how have people worked together. And then the second one, speaking of my teams, is people. I think that there's just so much, it's the amount of inspiration I get from the leaders that I work with, from students like you. Even just hearing your stories are just, I think, are so incredible, right? It's like the way that people think about the problems of today is very different when you're a student versus somebody who's been working for many years, right? I do a lot of working with external companies and partners and potential partners, and just hearing about how people have come to where they are and how they have
Mhm.
solved problems with technology, and some of the large scale things that we can do with technology to, I mean, literally change the world and make people's lives better. I get you can probably see my face. I get so inspired by what that the possibilities, what's possible out there.
Right. Do you consider any of them to be your hero, or do you consider anyone to be your hero?
It makes me think of a vision of a better world when I think of my parents and the way that they have conducted their lives, the way that they have overcome challenges, the way that they have affected their community and the people around them. Really, is probably the closest that I would say comes to a hero. They come right to mind.
How has this whole coronavirus and quarantine affected your work ethic essentially, or how has it affected you working with other coworkers, for instance?
So you can have the same richness of relationships and content and all of that, but it's very difficult to build that virtually without being really focused on it. Because otherwise you end up building everything's very transactional. So it becomes more difficult to build those relationships and to build trust if you're not focused on it, right? Um, and even with teams, building team building, right? How do you get that sense of what that team feels like when you're used to being, on Zoom or on Teams, and you're just seeing one person's face at a time, and maybe people go off camera and all of these things, right? So it's really, I think, focusing on that, the softer elements that actually make us better at our jobs
Mhm.
are become, you have to really focus on building them out, right? You can't just assume that they're going to come. You have to really think about how do you actually do that together. I think the other thing is that being able to have that flexibility of who is in those projects and being able to have greater opportunities for people, which particularly, we're talking about women in technology. I think it opens up even more opportunities for women, right? Because there's the ability to have that flexibility, which sometimes can be barriers at a particular point in people's lives and careers. being able to fulfill more roles and being able to look more broadly into, again, different locations and different types of career schedules, I should say, right? That you have to be focused on it, right?
Right. So that was actually my last question. We really appreciate you sharing your thoughts and advice with us today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you so much for the discussion.